You know, we don't often get to see that exact moment when someone's wish comes true. Well, I'd like to share one of mine and introduce why I find myself finally traveling the world. Hey, guess what? We are in Antarctica. You know, right now, outside my balcony window, Antarctica. Who would have ever thought? My gosh. Feeling very, very thankful right now and pretty excited too. Time to gear up and get out on deck. All right. Headed out to get some pictures and some video of this absolutely fascinatingly beautiful place. Yep, that was me on the Celebrity Infinity when we finally reached Antarctica. My journey to Antarctica began almost a half century before my actual arrival there. My grandfather, who was a veteran of World War I and who had seen France and other parts of the European theaters, would save his National Geographic magazines for me. Every once in a while, I'd be gifted a paper grocery sack full of those gold-edged magazines that, before the internet, before cable TV, before much of what we enjoy today, those gold-edged magazines were my window into a colorful, exciting, exotic, and fascinating world. Long before I was even able to read, I was familiar with the images of excavated Neanderthal burial sites, volcanoes in the South Pacific, artist renderings of life in space, the golden death mask of the boy king Tutankhamun, and the horses of the Plains Indian tribes. In those bags were more than the National Geographic magazines. They held sparks of curiosity, building blocks of appreciation for other cultures, and the seeds of a strong desire to see those places someday for myself. After all that time, finding myself in such a majestic and awe-inspiring place, I just couldn't believe how absolutely beautiful it was. Australian Andrew Denton said, "If Antarctica were music, it would be Mozart. Art, and it would be Michelangelo. Literature, and it would be Shakespeare. And yet it is something even greater, the only place on earth that is still as it should be. May we never tame it." That morning, the first time I had seen that continent which had been the subject of so many mariners' and explorers' tales, I was a bit overwhelmed. Several times I had to just stop and catch my breath and try to experience the experience and not just document it. This journey was also a big step for me as a solo traveler. Buenos Aires, where I embarked the ship, is about a 16,000-mile round trip from the Pacific Northwest. The limited Spanish skills I had were put to the test in Argentina, with taxis, hotel registration, even ordering food in restaurants with almost no English spoken. The 2-week ship journey, round trip to Buenos Aires, was around 5,000 nautical miles. My confidence was lifted on this journey, and my eyes sure were opened. In the Southern Sea, there were stars in the sky I had never seen before, birds and animals I had only known from nature documentaries. There was a clean crispness in the air that I didn't know existed anymore. All pools are drained close to Antarctica, even in the solarium, because the pipes would freeze. Also, a mid-morning silent disco was offered, I think, to make sure passengers didn't get frostbite. It was so cold and the wind cut through most clothing layers. Dreams and goals are funny things. 5-year-old me planned on becoming the first member of Jacques Cousteau's team to also be an astronaut, an archaeologist, an Egyptologist, and in my spare time help train Coco the gorilla and maybe even pioneer ways to speak to dolphins. The unstoppable possibilities of youth, right? Coming from a remote and economically disadvantaged part of the US, where people usually only traveled internationally because they had been called to serve in a war, I knew how unrealistic it was that I'd ever fulfill my dreams and goals of travel. Really, it was unrealistic to think I'd ever even attend college. Between my starry-eyed youth and when I actually started my travel journey, well, I've been married to an amazing man who, every day, helps me be a better person. I've raised 2 brilliant and talented sons who have become brilliant and talented men. I was the first person in my family to actually finish college. I've written novels and children's books, and I've helped coach other authors to do the same. I do not regret putting my exploring the world plans on hold all of those years. I wouldn't change 1 second of any of it. The thing about dreams is that even though we may have thousands of ideas of what we'd like to do in our lives, sometimes we grow out of them. Sometimes we change our minds, or sometimes the world changes. For example, I'll never be able to watch an Apollo rocket liftoff in person. That in every life, there are 1 or 2 dreams that stick. For my 42nd birthday, I got my first passport. I used it for the first time 7 years later when I boarded the Celebrity Solstice cruise ship in Vancouver, British Columbia, and sailed across the Pacific Ocean to Japan by myself. Since then, I've seen some amazing places on this big, beautiful planet. The Mediterranean, Scandinavia, the Caribbean, Tahiti, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and on this trip, Argentina and Antarctica. One of the reasons I was attracted to the YouTube platform was because I am, by nature, a storyteller and chronicler of other people's stories. The other reason is that it is such a powerful research tool for later in life solo travelers like me. I'm also a tireless encourager for other people who have travel goals like me. One of the reasons I was attracted to cruise travel was the simplicity. It's like a big magical luxury hotel that moves from exciting place to exciting place. While I do enjoy other kinds of travel now, my go-to is still on a cruise ship. It might also have something to do with my early Cousteau career plans, and while I know I'll never be a deckhand on the Calypso, I can travel to some of the same places Jacques and Renee did in a related fashion. So, fellow traveler, if we happen to meet someday in a foreign port, or on a mountaintop, or in a Bedouin tent, or on the top of the Space Needle, or even in a Moroccan spice shop, or anywhere on this big, beautiful planet, please forgive my big goofy smile and my wide eyes as I, finally, am able to take it all in.